New video has just been released in about the past hour of the moment of that National Guard shooting. Take a look here. New video emerges of the DC National Guard shooting. So I'm going to share with you the latest video footage. There's a lot of updates coming out on this, and I'm going to share with you this so you can see it for yourself. Just coming out, and if you appreciate the updates, hit the like button, subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free, but let's go ahead and dive in so you can see it for yourself.
The nation. Fox News alert: 2 National Guardsmen gunned down in Washington, D.C. just before the Thanksgiving holiday. 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom passed to glory, in the words of her father, while 24-year-old Andrew Wolf continues to fight for his life. And with that, we bring in Madeline Rivera live in Washington with the latest. Madeline.
Kaylee, federal officials are adamant they want the death penalty for the suspect, 29-year-old Ramanullah Lockenwall. New video obtained by the Wall Street Journal shows part of the shooting unfolding on Wednesday afternoon. The video taken by a witness shows the suspect holding a gun as a National Guardsman runs down the street. 5 seconds later, the outlet reports the Guardsman fires loud shots. Lockenwall is now facing first-degree murder for the death of 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom, as 24-year-old Andrew Wolf remains in critical condition.
Andrew is fighting for his life right now, and his family and all of his friends, they're trying to harvest as many prayers as possible from all across the country, all across the globe, to help him recover.
Investigators have yet to say what publicly motivated Lockenwall to drive cross-country from Washington state to D.C. to carry out this attack. Lockenwall was vetted by the intelligence community for his work with the CIA in Afghanistan. He would have also been screened before receiving asylum earlier this year. But the administration maintains there were gaps in the process during the chaos of the Afghanistan withdrawal, which is when Lockenwall came here to the U.S. Now they're cracking down on immigration. In one of their latest moves, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the State Department is pausing visas for all travelers with Afghan passports. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is also pausing all asylum decisions. The agency says that order will remain until they can ensure every foreigner is screened to the maximum degree. Kaylee.
Madeline Rivera, thank you.
She ended up being shot ambush style on the cold streets of Washington, D.C. By an individual who will now be charged with murder in the first degree. There are certainly many more charges to come, but we are upgrading the initial charges of assault to murder in the first degree. As a prosecutor, my job is to prove what happened at that scene. And make no mistake, we will do that.
U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, upgrading the charge against the suspect accused of shooting 2 National Guard members, killing one. 20-year-old West Virginia National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom sadly succumbed to her injuries, while Andrew Wolf is currently fighting for his life. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey joins us now with an update. Thank you, Governor, for joining us. So you spoke to Andrew's family earlier. What can you tell me about how he is doing?
Well, I think the condition remains very serious. It's a critical condition. Obviously, I'm not going to focus on the medical prognosis. I'll leave that to the doctors. But what I will say is this. Andrew is fighting for his life right now, and his family and all of his friends, they're trying to harvest as many prayers as possible from all across the country, all across the globe, to help him recover. By all accounts, this person, he's just been amazing, beloved by the folks within the Guard, and very popular. He is very accomplished at what he's done, and he comes from a really distinguished family of folks who have contributed to service, local service and military service. So he's got a tight-knit group really pulling for him right now, and I think that's the best thing we can do is continue to send prayers his way.
Yeah, it's all just so unimaginable and, of course, avoidable, which also makes it enraging. How do you feel like his family is holding up right now?
You know, obviously, this is an extremely difficult situation, but I can tell you that the family is trying to look at it in the most positive manner possible, that they are rooting for him, and they're trying to just send positive energy his way. I know his mom talks about the miracle of prayer. I believe in the miracle of prayer, and I think that's their focus. So it's healthy, and I know that she's really buoyed by the a number of people that are coming and praying for her. I think that what else can she do other than to really try to be positive for her son after such a heinous act that occurred that obviously is severely injured her son and killed Sarah. Just this is unconscionable what's happened.
Yeah, and obviously, the fact that both of these troops came from West Virginia, I know has to weigh heavily on the hearts and minds of all West Virginians.
It really does. I know that there was a vigil last night, a memorial. We issued a proclamation because we want to make sure that we're honoring these two brave individuals. West Virginia cares very deeply about its Guard. And there's just a proud tradition of West Virginians who step up for military service. So when something like this happens, it's really a gut punch to the communities. But people are stepping up. They know that it's time to have the Guards back. I know that I want to signal that West Virginia will do anything to help these families, to help these Guardsmen. I know President Trump believes the same thing because he has made that a priority. And I'm hopeful at the end of the day that we can see Andrew recover.
Yeah. As investigators continue their efforts to get to the bottom of exactly everything that went on here, and members of Congress and the White House begin to reevaluate how this person got into the country, either vetted or unvetted, what do you want to see happen going forward?
Well, most importantly, we need justice to be served. That's critical. I think West Virginians are counting on that. Americans are counting on that. What you started to see yesterday with the president stepping up in terms of the vetting process and trying to make sure that he's closing some of the loopholes, really that started under the Biden administration. There's so much cleanup that has to get done. I was saying yesterday that when I was Attorney General, I used to have to be regularly involved in lawsuits against the Biden border disorder. Well, now there's a lot more policy work that needs to be done to make sure that all of these millions and millions of undocumented aliens that came in and other people, that we have to review what are they doing and are we confident that there's not another major criminal lurking?
Governor Patrick Morrisey, thank you so much.
Now, in addition to that, we've heard that in response to all of this, Donald Trump is saying that he is going to be reversing all of President Biden's executive orders that were signed by AutoPin. Now, if you like the sound of that, put yes. If you think no, put no, as he's saying a lot of the stuff that unfolded with pouring tons of illegal immigrants without proper vetting into the country was one of the things that were signed through executive order. And he said he's going to be reversing that. If you like that, put yes. If not, put no. But we're hearing that he's going to be undoing a lot of what Biden did, as they're saying about 92 or 93% of the executive orders that were signed by Joe Biden actually were not signed by Joe Biden. They were signed by AutoPin. And so they are saying a lot of what happened during his administration is about to be undone. Let me know again. Do you like the sound of that? Let's go ahead and take a look.
Same time, he's also going after former President Biden's executive orders and pardons signed by the AutoPen on Truth Social. He writes, I am hereby canceling all executive orders and anything else that was not directly signed by crooked Joe Biden because the people who operated the AutoPen did so illegally. Joe Biden was not involved in the AutoPen process, and if he says he was, he will be brought up on charges of perjury. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Yeah, and you look at just the sheer volume of the AutoPen, 88%, I believe, were AutoPen. You can see it here, signed by AutoPen. 846 out of 958 total documents. 82% signed while Biden was in D.C. And as the Oversight Committee, James Comer's Oversight Committee has looked, he wasn't even present a lot of times the AutoPen was being used, which is why it's of course a startling frequency that it's used, but that's not really the point of it. What the point of it is like, was it actually authorized?
Yeah, the Constitution does not say anything about an AutoPen. It says things about the President of the United States signing things, but it doesn't say anything about a machine that is designed to make an imprint that looks like the president's signature. Doesn't say anything about that. And so it really does raise a lot of very important questions. And obviously the pardon thing, you know, we'll get into all of that. But there are actually cases where the auto pen signed documents, part of the signature was, you know, as president hereby sitteth in the throne of the White House or whatever. And it turns out when you go back and you look at his calendar, he was not even in Washington, D.C., or he wasn't even in the United States when these things got signed.
Right. And to be clear, you know, it's interesting because in the estates and wills and estate planning sort of realm of this world, there is never and also with, by the way, judicial orders, you cannot imprint via a vehicle your signature. Like, it requires your actual hand, right? And judges' orders have been ruled vacated because there was a stamp used instead of the judge's signature. But to your point about the auto pen here, that the issue is not the use of that. The issue is whether the delegation of executive authority was in fact authentic, was in fact legitimate. And we know that any president can override prior president's executive order. So this, yes, as long as I think the sort of implementation is beyond just a Truth Social post. So the issue here in the pardons is squarely whether indeed it was President Biden's intention to have those pardons executed. We know the Hunter Biden one, sure, that's in a different pot. But the issue is whether in the cases of the auto pens, whether Biden's mind was even involved. I spoke earlier with Andrew Cherkasky, the constitutional law attorney, who said that Trump can indeed terminate those Biden orders, but it's something else to say about the pardons. Watch.
President Trump has absolute authority to cancel prior executive orders, whether it was done with or without a auto pen. So his decision and the announcement that he made actually is to some degree is surprising. He could have on day one undone any executive order that was done by President Biden. The fact that it was or was not the auto pen is not even an issue that prevents President Trump from pulling back those executive orders. The more interesting question, I think, comes in when we start to look at the pardons that President Biden signed with an auto pen. The nature of the text alone suggests that President Biden was just engaging, or his staff was engaging in pardons that have no meaning or effect when played out in the long run.
Yeah, letting out child murderers and recidivists, homicide. I mean, it is. What word am I using for that specific? It is appalling to see the individuals whose sentences were commuted and pardoned.
And think about how many lesser documents we as just citizens have to get a notary public to sign, where the notary is sitting there looking at your driver's license, watching you actually with your hand sign your signature on some, again, lesser document than the documents that this auto pen were just signing willy-nilly at the direction of Lord knows who.
Well, and, you know, some of the pardons that we know the auto pen did were members of Biden's family, not Hunter excluded, but they're family.
He got the special one.
You got General Mark Milley, you got Dr. Anthony Fauci, you got members of the January 6th committee, so it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
It sure will be.
He ended up being shot ambush style on the cold streets of Washington, D.C. By an individual who will now be charged with murder in the first degree. There are certainly many more charges to come, but we are upgrading the initial charges of assault to murder in the first degree. As a prosecutor, my job is to prove what happened at that scene. And make no mistake, we will do that.
A Fox News alert: U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, upgrading the charge against the suspect accused of shooting 2 National Guard members, killing 1. 20-year-old National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom sadly succumbed to her injuries. West Virginia Congressman Riley Moore represents National Guardsman Andrew Wolf and his family, who is currently fighting for his life, and he joins us now. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I understand that you spoke to the Guardsman's family. Can you tell us how they're doing and tell us anything about Andrew?
Well, I have, and I've stayed in touch with Andy's family there. Andy lives, and his family, about 20 minutes down the road from me. And I think what people need to know is that This is a family that is committed to service, not only to the great state of West Virginia, but this country. His father's a deputy sheriff in the county next to mine, and Andy wanted to follow in that footsteps and serve his nation as a National Guardsman. And Andy is hanging on, and he's a fighter, and his family has told me that time and time again. He is a fighter. But above all, what they want here is for everybody to continue to pray. I believe in the power of prayer, and I can promise you his parents believe in the power of prayer. And I know there's a lot of prayer warriors that watch this show. Please keep praying.
Can you tell us, without a doubt, absolutely, and I think that, just walking around the streets of New York and back home in Virginia, everybody is praying for him and praying for his family. Stepping back and looking at the larger issue about how sort of we got here and what are the mistakes that were made by the government that got us to this situation, as a member of Congress, what are you looking at, or what can we look at to either both find other problems that might exist like this and correct them?
Well, to be clear, I think the president is taking the correct step by re-vetting these individuals. But in my view, he should have never been here.
Right.
He should have never been in this country to begin with. We had over 80,000 Afghan nationals piled into the United States. We don't know these people. We don't know who they are. And this is the first time I can think of. We've had terrorists come to the United States before. This is the first time that I can recall the United States government brought a terrorist into our country, into the United States. And after we had 13 of our service members killed at Abbey Gate, that continued failed policy just cost us another American life by the Biden administration. We should not be in this position to begin with. And a beautiful young lady from West Virginia lost her life because of this failed policy by Joe Biden.
So obviously Republicans control the White House, both chambers of Congress. Do you have faith that Republicans will be focused on this issue and help President Trump do something about it?
I do. I have faith in that, and people can have faith that I am certainly going to be focused on this issue, as I know the rest of the West Virginia delegation is going to be focused on this issue. I mean, this is something we got to go back and look at. We don't know who else is here. It's unknowable to know what type of actual terrorist threats that we have brought into our own country.
Congressman, thank you so much for your time, and certainly our prayers are with the Wolf family.
There you have it, you guys. Now, we have heard that President Donald Trump is working very quickly right now. We're hearing to reverse executive orders, to do reverse migration, to get people out of here, and they want to put some heavy charges on this individual who murdered that National Guard. And we're hearing updates right now that the other National Guard that was shot, he is in critical condition. They said to pray for him right away. And he also, you heard him mention, said that there have been millions that have poured into the nation. We don't know how many people are here to cause harm. We've heard the warnings in the past regarding sleeper cells that want to commit crimes here in the United States, orchestrating this to happen simultaneously, potentially also alongside with critical infrastructure hacks that would wreak havoc on our U.S. systems. We're talking about communications, transportation, water, electrical, you name it. They're saying that there are hackers that have infiltrated our systems along with sleeper cells that are potentially here to cause massive harm to U.S. citizens. If you're concerned about that, let me know in the comments. Put yes or no. But we're hearing that Donald Trump is making some moves right away, right now, to try to address this. But let's take a look at some more video footage as we're hearing more updates regarding the individual that shot these two National Guards. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Right now, I do want to take you out to some of the big stories that we are covering here, and this one coming in overnight as the U.S. State Department has put a pause on issuing visas to anyone traveling on an Afghan passport. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirming this on his X page, writing right there on your screen, quote, President Trump's State Department has paused visa issuance for all individuals traveling on Afghan passports. The United States has no higher priority than protecting our nation and our people. The move comes as an Afghan national is charged with carrying out this week's deadly ambush attack on 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. As a result, President Trump has vowed to, quote, permanently pause migration from poorer countries, promising to expel millions of immigrants from the U.S. by revoking their legal status.
And you've made changes for Afghanis' ability to apply for asylum. Do you blame all Afghans for this one man's mistake?
No, but we've had a lot of problems with Afghans because they had a lot of them coming in on these planes. Again, I show you this picture. We had a lot of them coming in on these planes that are, look at them. There was no checking. They just poured into the plane. And many of these people are criminals. Many of these people are people that shouldn't be here. And many of them have been gotten out. I mean, we've gotten out a lot of the people that, we've taken a lot of them out of here.
But many of them
they
aren't
came
here
in
legally, right?
Yeah, I know this deal. Sorry, many are wonderful. Yeah,
no,
I'm sure.
I said many are here legally, though. What should they think in terms of their prospects?
Well, they can't be happy. Okay, they can't be happy.
Now, take a look at your screen right here. Ramanullah Lackenwall is the suspected gunman in this shooting here. The Trump administration says he worked with the CIA during the Afghanistan war and came to the U.S. as part of a program to resettle those who helped American troops after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. The 29-year-old, who faces charges including first-degree murder, is accused of fatally shooting West Virginia National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom on Wednesday in the nation's capital. This is video here from the scene. Now, another guardsman, Andrew Wolf, was critically injured in the attack and at last check remains hospitalized in critical condition. A lot to discuss about all of this, so I do want to bring in Brian Higgins, security expert, founder of Group 77 and former police chief in Bergen County, New Jersey, also served 8 years in the National Guard. Thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
Of course. And first off, I do want to kind of ask you overall, as we've seen this investigation play out over the last 3 days or so, can you break down what information has stood out to you overall?
Well, first and foremost, the background of this individual who perpetrated this heinous crime, the fact that he came from Afghanistan, the fact that he worked with the CIA and our U.S. government is probably the most outstanding information that we have right now. And from there, much of the information about him and whatever information law enforcement can gather about this shooting will begin there.
And as we take a look right here, I do want to pop some of this up on your screen. We do have the 2 victims. As I mentioned, we do know that Sarah Beckstrom did pass away from her injuries, and at last check, Andrew Wolf is listed in critical condition. Now, we haven't received an update today, but of course we will bring you that as we do get it. How does an investigation like this typically unfold in the first 48, 72 hours?
Well, Josh, investigations like this are multifaceted. It's not any one avenue that they'll take. They're going to begin at whatever information they have already on this individual. I'll call it a file that the CIA has about his background when they first vetted him to be part of this this team that he belonged to, this program. But it will also include digital evidence. It'll include evidence about the firearm, the travel of his vehicle, his planning, his finances, all of his communications, as well as his actions in the last several days. They're going to build a kind of or recreate his life in the last several months, from the last several months.
And on that kind of note, how do they work to determine whether this was something that was planned in advance, if it was an opportunistic situation? Obviously, at this point, we've heard from investigators this was planned as he drove from Washington State, they say, over to the nation's capital and carried out the attack Wednesday. But how do they go about determining that so quickly?
Well, they're going to show or look at his travel records. He's going to have stopped for gas. He may have an easy pass or something similar. They're going to track his cell phone. The firearm, I understand, has already been tracked back to Washington State. So we know that he carried a firearm from Washington State and traveled to D.C. What they want to know is, how long was that travel? Is this something that took a week, several days, or did he move at a very quick pace, which would indicate that he was determined from the moment he left Washington State to carry out a violent act like this? So that's the beginning of this investigation. They're also going to look at, again, his financial records, his communications before this, and any changes in his daily life or his personality leading up to this event.
How do they go about determining whether there are potential accomplices? If somebody else did potentially play a role in the planning process, we know, of course, that federal investigators did say this was a lone gunman. He acted alone in the shooting itself, they say. But how do they go about determining if maybe somebody else is involved somehow along the way?
So that will be information gained from his digital footprint, his communication, his email, his phone, but also boots on the ground, police investigation where they're going to talk to his neighbors, his family members, his friends, co-workers, anybody that he's touched in the last few years. They'll go to places that he regularly goes to. Can he communicate from those places? Can he use another phone? So they're going to go step by step. And as time moves on, they're going to gather more and more information. And as that information is gathered, the new information that comes in may shed light on the current information they have.
And right there on your screen, that is the suspect in the shooting. As of right now, we are told that he will be charged with first-degree murder. However, at this point, our last understanding is that he's still hospitalized here. Is there anything, Brian, that you would say the public maybe commonly misunderstands about something of this nature, especially when you're talking about a federal investigation?
So something like this, you have many different angles. You have uniformed armed service members in the military carrying out the orders of the President of the United States. At the same time, I understand they've been deputized so they can act as law enforcement officers in D.C. So you have a military deployment here, as well as a law enforcement deployment. So the resources on this investigation are going to be more than normal. They're going to exceed the FBI, local law enforcement. They're going to include the military as well.
What question or maybe questions do you have that you hope federal investigators could release here in the coming hours and days? There's a lot of questions about what the potential motive was here. We have some limited information there that was released by Kash Patel, the FBI director, as well as Jeanine Pirro. She actually held a news conference there with Kash Patel over on Thanksgiving Day to kind of break it all down. But what question or questions do you have that you hope will be answered?
Well, first and foremost, the most critical is this part of a much larger plan? Is this one individual who's part of a multifaceted attack on the United States? If it is, that should come out in the investigation that goes back to his time in Afghanistan, leaving Afghanistan. What were his initial intent of coming to the United States? So we want to know, first and foremost, is this part of a larger planned attack on the United States? Secondly, we want to know how this came to be where he was not identified in advance. Is there anything along the way that was missed? It was called vetting when he was allowed to be part of this special program in Afghanistan. But what does that vetting look like? Was it a check the box just to make sure this person is who he says it is, or was it a deep dive? So we want to know what can be done in the future to identify information that would prevent something like this happening again.
And my last question for you here before I let you go, what sort of role would you say that the public plays here in kind of piecing this all together? We know in an everyday investigation here, you have police who put out a call for anyone with any information who may have witnessed something. If you have surveillance video, is it the same kind of situation here when you're talking about a federal investigation where a lot of information is not yet being released?
It's critical that the public share the information they have, no matter what it is. If they were in the area at the time and heard anything, saw anything, do they have any digital imaging of what occurred? Do they have video? Do they have pictures? Many cars today have mobile in-car video, the average civilian vehicle. Anything that they know, whether they were there at the scene, near the scene, or where he lives, public information is going to be critical. Much of the video that's going to be recovered and used will come from private entities, businesses that had cameras on the outside. As that information comes in, it's literally like a puzzle. Each piece will build a bigger picture. And as that picture is built, as new information is gathered, it will shed more light on that information that already is received.
All right. Brian Higgins, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to help break all of this down.
There you have it, you guys. So that is the latest coming out. We've got new video footage that has emerged, and we are hearing that right now more information is still coming out, and they're concerned, is this just a one-time thing, a lone actor, or is this a part of a bigger orchestrated potential attack that is going to be coming? Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that there's going to be more coming? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. But you heard them pose the question in the previous video. Are there going to be more here? Who knows how many have poured into our nation over the course of the last 4 years that want to do harm to the United States, to the people here? And they said, is this going to be just the beginnings of more to come? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you appreciate the action that Donald Trump is taking right now to try to prevent any more further attacks, drop a 47 in the comments as well for support for Donald Trump. But you guys, that is the latest. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll keep you up to speed as more comes out. Hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. Hit the like button to support the live stream. And I will keep you up to date as more news comes out. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.